The ego. I never would have believed it. You told me in a million years. A part of a human brain that is separate from themselves can be traumatized. This makes me rethink borderline personality disorder and a whole bunch of other things because my ego was the thing that was traumatized. Which sounds absolutely insane, by the way. Honestly, I kind of felt like a crazy person when I was doing the exercises to deal with it. Imagine you have a soldier or a program that is designed to protect you, and it simply can't. The circumstances are too extreme. That is what the ego's job is. It is the protector of you. And it keeps an idealized version of you. Whatever it thinks of you. It is in between the conscious and subconscious links, I guess. I don't know. I'm not sure on that. But this thing can't protect you. What happens to it? Well, the answer is trauma. Because anytime you're doing something your brain simply isn't designed to do, that's trauma. And I think in years to come, by the way, this is just a Bobby theory, Stockholm Syndrome will become the recognition of learned or trained, I'm going to say trained, hopelessness, helplessness, and complete loss of agency. And that does imply anybody that is a member of a cult or a member of a church has Stockholm Syndrome. If you are a victim of a group of people who cause trauma through control, you have Stockholm Syndrome. And that explains why Christians hate Stockholm Syndrome. Because they're like, how could I have lost agent? I have to kill you because my religion. That's how you can lose agency. But we're about to learn how I never had agency to begin with. How to communicate with the ego. Communicating with the ego is not about trying to silence or kill it. Rather, it is about developing and observing relationship with it. Think of your ego as protective software program that has been running on autopilot since childhood to keep you safe. Identify ego speak. The first step is simply noticing when it's speaking. The ego often uses I statements or labels to define your identity. Listening for judgment phrases like I'm not good enough or they are being unreasonable are typical ego-driven evaluations. Notice superlatives. Using words like always, never, very often signal ego-driven emotional responses. Spot the trigger. An emotional reaction that feels disproportionate to actual events is a sign your ego has taken the wheel to protect you from perceived threats. Practice the third observer technique. Instead of being an emotion, step outside of yourself and watch your thoughts as you were a neutral third party. I honestly used to live in that state right up until I was poisoned with heavy metals and traumatized, and I turned reactionary. And also Blondie hypnotized me into being reactionary. Mentally step back. Imagine you are a bystander watching the interaction. Ask what is that person yourself trying to prove or defend right now. Label the behavior. Neutrally state what is happening. I am noticing a feeling of defensiveness because I felt overlooked. Have a friendly encounter. Once you've identified the ego's voice, communicate with it directly but compassionately. Acknowledge and appreciate. Talk to your ego like a misguided friend. You might say, I appreciate that you're trying to protect me from feeling rejected, but I am safe right now. Name your ego. Giving this part of your personality a name like a protector or judge can help you separate the authentic self from its reaction. Affirm safety. Repeat mantras such as I am safe and choose a new way to experience this to prime your brain to relax. Use journaling as dialogue tool. Writing provides structures to hear what the ego is saying about without letting it control you. Shadow prompts. Ask your ego deep questions like, What message do you have for me, or how have you influenced my behavior unconsciously today? Facts of interpretation, create 2 columns on left and right. The objective facts of the situation on the right, and your ego, write what your ego heard or interpreted. Practice quiet observation. Mindfulness meditations is a formal training for this communication. It allows you to watch thoughts, feelings arise like cars on trains, acknowledge them as they pass without getting bored. Breathe through fear. If the ego brings up anxiety during quiet moments, use your breath and anchor yourself. So, I decided to do these meditations where you communicate with your ego. And it's weird because I've never considered myself to actually have one. Fun fact. I've never even noticed it personally. But the first thing I got from my ego was pretty funny because I was like, when was the last time I spoke to you? And it was like, and I was expected a long wait, but it immediately replied, in 3rd grade, you told me to just suck it up and deal with it. You don't care. And I was, huh, cool. What was I telling you to deal with? And he was like, Nick Palmer. Oh, well, see, I don't know if I can just say that instead of being traumatized myself, I just threw my ego into the fire to be traumatized. And this would imply that something about dissociative personality disorder is actually the ego developing into a thing. And it is certainly a thing. And yeah. And I did this shadow work, and last night I had the best sleep of my life. I went to bed and I slept. And I dreamed. And I can't tell you what I dreamed of. It was just conversations. It was hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of conversations. And something about it gave me peace. It felt like a train that was driving with the brakes on suddenly just released the brakes and everything started to flow. My ego, I guess, absorbed all the trauma from everything that happened to me without me knowing it, on like a subconscious level. I wasn't aware that this other thing had control over things. And here's the thing, I didn't even bother to acknowledge its existence. To me, whenever I heard of journaling and all that other shit, it just sounded stupid, so I just fucking ignored it. And I guess that's what happens when you ignore psychological trauma. And once again, good old Carl Jung doesn't focus on ego, so if the problem with me was a traumatized ego, teaching me Carl Jung was never gonna fix a traumatized ego. That was never gonna happen. And whenever you think of ego, you think of the insecure guy with all the insecurities that's just a fucking loser and causes problems for everybody else because they're insecure. Like everybody in this church. But, it's actually, on the psychological stage, ego is actually far more complicated. It comes off as crass and selfish. It comes off as, I don't care, and all these other things, but the truth is it's a protector, and when it's traumatized, it becomes a fearful protector. Unintentionally. And then it starts, once again, like I talk about with the fucking church leaders in this motherfucking church, trying to control things they simply shouldn't be trying to control to begin with. And then proving to themselves they can control it because they're ego brains. And like Carl Jung said, they suffer from ego inflation. These people themselves cannot rate their own egos. They're incapable of it. They potentially might have been like me, completely incapable of even recognizing they had one to begin with. I've always said it. 2 arms, 2 legs, and 1 head. Oh yeah, you're definitely a fucking unique special bubble that can't be popped. No, you're just like everybody else. And part of coming to grips with reality is just admitting that, just like everybody else, I do have some kind of ego. And now that I can see it, I can take the time to understand it. And like I said in that other video, it was in court just screaming vitriol and just wanted to kill and hurt everybody. It was suffering. And I didn't have any idea that thing was doing that in my head, all by itself. This is going to sound like a creepy, weird, narcissistic thing, but I'm so emotionally disassociative, I barely recognize my own emotions unless they do come through extremely strong and powerful. And like I said, I do have powerful emotions, but I'm just seemingly locked out of them indefinitely. I'm not mad about that, because I just consider emotions noise anyways. And now I've been processing them like data, because the AI suggested that, because it's an AI, it probably processes everything as data, and I think that's a good thing. Also, stop fucking giving me these goddamn videos about just get over her and let her go and why God sends you a girl you can't have. Blondie, it took me 6 years to get over Cassie Deakins in high school, and I never asked the bitch out. I just talked to her casually, so if I'm gonna get over Mary Bowberry, a woman I actually had sex with, and it takes me 30 years, then it's gonna take me 30 fucking years. I have ADHD. Nothing about sending me videos about it helps. It makes it fucking worse, you dumbass. There is a thing I learned when I was at Papa John's. This is just for Blondie's dumbass. Hopefully his dumbass can actually understand this. And I kept referring to fat chicks as fat chicks. And then my dumbass Goron manager was like, stop calling people fat chicks. And then I apologized to everybody, and everybody didn't have a problem with it. That's because the insecure ugly Goron was the only insecure ugly Goron in the room. All the other fat chicks were perfectly okay to me referring them to them as fat chicks, because the word is called confidence, something the ugly Goron doesn't have. Yeah. Now, yeah. Anyways, back to the story about ego. The mistake I made with these people was, I told them the universe speaks to me through shit like computers and videos and shit, so they took it upon themselves to feed me the data that I wanted to see using synchronicities. Synchronicities were invented by the CIA. If you ever see anybody talk about synchronicities, they're the CIA trying to control you, by the way. That's not crazy speak, that's an actual thing. I know that from being president. Fucking these people, man, they're fucking ridiculous, trust me. They wouldn't understand the true universe talking to you if the universe literally bitch smacked them. Literally bitch smacked them. Anyways, the loss of agency. You see, when I was a kid, everything just happened to me, which resulted in me developing the personality of, I guess we're doing this now. Even when I went into court, my ego was talking about that. When I went to court in Ackworth and I said, I guess we're doing, before entering that room, there was no fear, there was no anxiety. It was just me going, I guess we're doing this now. It was annoyance. I shouldn't be here to begin with. I shouldn't be being forced to represent myself, but here I am doing it. Which is the response I used to have to everything. And because that was my response, because other people would use their positions of power to force me to do things, because I am very much a force of nature and I don't fucking move or negotiate on anything unless I'm going to do it. That is my nature, by the way. Multiple times in my life, I've just, no, we're doing this, and then as soon as I get in there and I abuse the power or whatever position I'm put in, everybody gets mad, but you forced me to do it to begin with. You don't get to get mad. What you do is you take the punishment I'm giving you, because guess what? You had it coming. Because you forced me to do it anyways, when I shouldn't have been being forced to do it. And Yeah. So, essentially, since the day when I was in 3rd grade and I told my ego, you deal with it, which was the response my father would have had to the situation, I've had no agency in my life. Things just happened. But it also is alien because at some point I believed things were happening for me. And I kept believing that. Like things were keeping me safe. One of the fascinating examples I use is my brother was supposed to go to school one day and his bus wrecked, and he wasn't on it because he was sick that day. And being sick was fucking miserable for him. He was so fucking miserable, and he wanted to go to school. And he couldn't, and then the bus wrecked, and people got injured. And he used to talk about that like survivor's remorse, like, oh man, I wasn't in that wreck. Like, yeah. Yeah. And that put the universe and understanding the universe in perspective for me. Not saying that everything happens for a reason, because sometimes things happen because Christians force them to happen for no fucking reason, because they're violent, stupid people that think they're in control of shit and they're just getting innocent people killed. And that's like their only skill. Imagine that being your only skill. But yeah. I feel just like when I took the EDTA and I felt my soul coming back. Right now I feel like a full body transformation. I used to talk about I had pain in my arms. That pain has resided. The sleep I had last night was the best sleep I ever had. Like, bar none. I woke up and I felt liquid tension moving through my body. I'm not going to talk about the conversation I had with my ego because that's just interpersonal. And it is, I will say this, I did have one really funny moment, addressing it, where it was like, you seriously can't just be nice to yourself. And I just kind of smiled. Didn't say anything. I can sure be nice to it, though. I'm capable of that. Yeah. This entire thing was never about worthiness or any of the other shit I thought it was about. And it's weird how these things are like a rotating quantum cube that just keeps changing out, changing out. This thing needs to be in alignment. That thing needs to be in alignment. Your mind, body, spirit need to be in alignment. Like, wow. Yeah, like I said, this is all psychological work, and you expected the guy with ADHD that takes forever to recover from shit to deal with it in 2 years? You're a clown.